Starward horizons. In the centuries since we first broke Earth's gravity, we learned a simple truth. The universe does not give up its secrets willingly. We built faster engines, smarter machines, stronger hulls. We pushed outward into the darkness until the night sky became a map of human lights. But the deeper we go, the more we find signs we cannot explain. Structures too old to measure, signals with no source, worlds that look arranged. Somewhere beyond the charted lanes, a pattern is emerging, one that suggests we are not the first to reach for the stars, and whatever came before us may not be gone. This is the starship Argo. This is Captain Raphael A. Sterling. The quest for the infinite begins here. Episode 3, The Choir of Dust. The first thing Tanaka learned about alien gifts was that they never arrived alone. They came with context, implicit assumptions about physics, about intent, about the kind of minds that would recognize a pattern and want to complete it. They also came with consequences. In Bay 2, under the clean white lights of the Argo's fabrication deck, a shuttle hull panel hung in a suspension cradle like a sheet of dull silver. Around it, armatures held injector heads and field emitters in a careful ring. Tanaka stood with her sleeves rolled up, eyes hard, hair pinned back in a way that meant she'd slept in bursts. Sterling watched from the observation line with Calder, Cade, and Petrov. The panel looked ordinary. The data scrolling in the air between Tanaka's rigs did not. Tanaka tapped a sequence. "We're not coding it with anything we'd call a material," she said. "Not in the traditional sense. We're imprinting a response, an alignment preference. It's like teaching the outer lattice of the hull how to behave when space tries to sandblast it." Cade's arms were folded. "You keep saying teaching." Tanaka didn't look at her. "Because it's accurate." Petrov's voice was mild. "And you keep saying preference instead of compulsion." Tanaka finally glanced up. "Doctor? If you're asking whether it can override our baseline surface behavior, yes, that's the point. But it's passive unless the environment pushes." Calder leaned closer to the glass. "And if the environment pushing happens to be deliberate?" Tanaka's jaw tightened. "Then we learn that too." Sterling kept his tone even. "We do this on a shuttle panel first. We expose it to the debris stream we mapped 2 jumps back. Controlled conditions." Tanaka nodded. Already cued. The injector heads hummed. The air around the panel shimmered, not with light, but with the faint distortion of fields doing delicate work. On a microscopic scale, bonds shifted their favored orientations, like a crowd turning toward a new song. On Tanaka's display, a signature formed, a repeating curve nested in itself, elegant and unsettling, the same mathematical taste as the window beneath the glass ocean. Petrov watched Tanaka's heart rate rise again, then deliberately settle when she breathed out. She approved without smiling. Progress without surrender. Cade spoke quietly. "How do we know this isn't a tag?" Tanaka answered without hesitation. "We don't. We treat it like it is." Sterling's gaze stayed on the panel. "Then we make sure we can take it off." Tanaka's hands paused, then resumed. "Already working on a reversal field. But if it's like the first modulation, if it's embedded in how material likes to behave, removal may not be clean." Calder muttered. "Nothing about this has been clean." Sterling heard him. "No," he said. "But it's been survivable." The panel's shimmer faded. The rigs fell quiet. Tanaka straightened and flexed her fingers. "Done." Cade's eyes narrowed. "Now we see if it works." Sterling nodded once. "Launch the test." They didn't announce the test to the ship. They didn't call it an experiment. They called it routine, because routines made fear manageable. The shuttle, uncrewed, remote piloted by Calder with Cade watching threat lines, slid out of the Argo's bay like a quiet promise. It drifted to the edge of a mapped debris stream, a thin river of micrometeoroids, invisible until you watched the way starlight flickered through it. Calder's voice came through the bridge speakers. Entering stream in 5, 4, 3. The shuttle crossed the boundary. A normal hull would have started to accumulate pitting almost immediately. Even the Argo's materials could be chewed by enough time in such a flow. The micrometeoroids weren't large, but they were fast, and the universe had a long patience for erosion. On the camera feed, faint sparks danced along the shuttle's forward edges, tiny impacts bleeding energy into momentary light. Then the pattern changed. The sparks began to slide, not in the sense of literal motion, but in the way the impacts distributed. Instead of punching into the hull, the energy skated along the surface, smearing into harmless heat and shedding into the surrounding field like rainwater on oiled glass. Tanaka's eyes lit with a careful triumph. "There," she whispered. Cade leaned forward. "It's deflecting," Calder corrected. Fascinated. "It's redirecting. The surface is letting the impacts couple into a tangential vector. It's turning piercing force into glancing." Sterling watched the live feed without blinking. He could feel the ship's future pivoting on this. A coating that made the hull less vulnerable to the universe's rough hands would change what kinds of places they could go, and what kinds of places could reach back. Petrov's voice was soft, almost to herself, slippery to reality. Tanaka heard her and nodded once, grim. "Yes, exactly." The shuttle exited the stream. Its hull, on the high-resolution inspection scan, showed minimal damage, a few shallow scars. Nothing like what the control panel on a different shuttle skin had shown last week. Aller exhaled. "It works." Cade's expression didn't soften. "It works here." Sterling turned slightly. "And that's enough to take the next step." Calder pulled up the signal map, the lattice points, the ones the glass ocean had shown them, the ones now faintly present in the Argo's enhanced band, hung in the dark like a constellation made of intent. One point blinked brighter than the rest, not because it was louder, but because it was closer, and because the rhythm was different. Not the slow, patient heartbeat of the first world, not the interrogative storm pattern of the glass ocean. This one had harmonics. Calder's voice was quiet. "It's singing." Cade looked at him. "Don't anthropomorphize the signal." Calder swallowed. "It's layered, multiple frequencies, like chords." Tanaka leaned in. "Like a carrier wave with overtones," Petrov said. "Like a voice you can't quite understand." Sterling stared at the blinking point. "Set course," he said. Calder did, and the Argo went to meet a song. The system was dim. A red dwarf sat at its center, small and stubborn, surrounded by a sparse family of rocks and cold worlds. Most of them were dead. One of them, third from the star, had a thin atmosphere and a surface that looked, from orbit, like ash and bone. But the signal didn't come from the planet as a whole. It came from a continent-sized scar of pale dust on the night side, where the surface reflected the red dwarf's light in soft gradients, like powdered glass. The harmonics grew stronger as the Argo slipped into high orbit. They weren't audible, not directly, but the sensors rendered them as a shifting braid of lines, a waveform that seemed to fold into itself, producing patterns that resembled music notation only if you had a human brain desperate for metaphor. Calder spoke first. "No satellites, no atmospheric traffic, no detectable emissions besides the signal." Cade's eyes stayed on the threat overlay. "Any weapons-grade energy?" Calder shook his head. "Not in the usual sense. But the atmosphere has a high particulate content. It's electrically active." Tanaka's fingers danced over her console. "Surface composition reads silicates. Very fine. The dust is charged. It could carry fields the way the glass ocean carried lightning. Petrov's gaze narrowed. And charged fine particulate is dangerous to lungs. Suit seals, eyes, and electronics, Cade finished. Sterling watched the planet rotate. The dust continent gleamed faintly like frost. "What's the gravity?" Calder checked. .88 Earth. Manageable. Then we go down, Sterling said. Cade's jaw tightened. Shuttle will have trouble if the dust is as charged as it looks. It'll cling, it'll arc. Sterling nodded. Then we use what we learned. Tanaka. Coat the shuttle's leading edges with the new alignment. Minimal coverage. Reversible, if possible. Tanaka hesitated only a fraction. Aye. Petrov looked at Sterling. Captain, if this world is producing harmonics, and if we've already seen entrainment effects, I want strict exposure limits. No unfiltered audio. No direct suit feed. Sterling's expression was serious. Agreed, Cade said. And no walking into anything that looks like a choir loft? Tanaka muttered. You don't even know what that looks like. Cade shot her a glance. If it looks like it's waiting to teach you something, it's a choir loft. Tanaka opened her mouth, then closed it. Sterling hid a brief smile. Prep the landing party, Sterling said. Standard 4. Calder stays with the ship. Calder nodded, and something in his eyes looked like relief. Sterling didn't blame him. The shuttle descent was the quiet kind of tense, the sort that didn't announce itself until it had you by the throat. Outside the cockpit, the sky was pale and thin. Below, the dust continent spread like a sea of powder, broken by ridges of dark rock that rose like drowned spines. The harmonics strengthened as they dropped, and the shuttle's instruments began to behave as if they were listening. Noise in one channel resolved into signal in another. Static became pattern. Tanaka sat in the rear, watching her field readings. The dust is acting like a resonant medium, she said. It's vibrating in response to the signal. Cade, in the co-pilot seat, watched the lightning risk overlay. Any discharges? Not lightning, Tanaka replied. But micro arcs. The dust is carrying charge and releasing it in tiny pulses. Sterling kept the shuttle steady. Can the coating handle it? Tanaka glanced at the hull readout. So far, yes, it's shedding the charge sideways, like the debris stream test, but with electricity. Petrov's voice was calm, filtered through her suit collar mic. Crew vitals steady. No entrainment yet. Cade's tone was dry. Give it a minute. They broke through the last thin layer of atmosphere haze and leveled out above the dust sea. It was beautiful in a way that felt wrong. The dust wasn't just fine. It was uniform, as if someone had sifted an entire continent through a perfect screen. The surface held gentle dunes that looked like snowdrifts. When the wind moved, it didn't create chaos. It created waves, smooth, rhythmic ripples that rolled across the powder in patterns that matched the harmonics. Sterling lowered the shuttle toward a flat area near a ridge of dark stone. The dust lifted in a halo around their descent jets. But instead of scattering, it swirled in coherent spirals, as if guided by invisible hands. Cade stared. That's not normal fluid dynamics. Tanaka's voice was almost reverent. It's being tuned. They touched down. The landing struts sank a few centimeters into the powder, then held. The coated edges of the shuttle shimmered with a faint field crawl, redirecting charge. Cade opened the hatch protocols. All right, she said. In and out, we locate the source, we record, we leave. Sterling looked back at the team. We keep our heads, he said. We keep our boundaries. Tanaka nodded, jaw tight with excitement she didn't trust. Petrov checked her filters again. No direct audio feed. If you hear something, it's through suit dampening only. Cade touched her weapon. More comfort than threat. If the dust starts singing at you, you walk away. Sterling stepped down first. The dust crunched softly under his boots, like frost. It clung to his soles for a moment, then slid away, as if the surface refused to be carried. The sky was silent. The red dwarf hung low, a dim ember, and yet, in the back of Sterling's mind, there was a sensation like hearing music through a wall. Not sound, not thought. A pressure on pattern recognition. The harmonics weren't coming through his ears. They were coming through his bones. "Captain," Petrov said quietly over comm, "your heart rate just shifted." Sterling kept his voice steady. "Noted." Cade's head turned slightly, as if she too felt it. "Don't," she muttered. Whether to the world or to herself, it wasn't clear. Tanaka knelt and scooped a small sample into a sealed vial. The dust flowed between her gloved fingers like liquid, then settled into a perfect level surface inside the container. "It's charged," she said, "but not randomly. The charge distribution is structured." Cade looked toward the ridgeline. "Signals strongest that way." They moved. As they walked, the dust around their boots rippled outward in faint rings, not just from pressure, though that was part of it, but from the harmonics. Each step seemed to trigger a local response, as if the ground listened and answered. After a kilometer, they reached the dark ridge. Up close, it wasn't a ridge at all. It was a line of stone pillars rising from the dust like the ribs of a buried creature. Each pillar was smooth and straight, angled slightly, as if leaning toward a shared center. Some were broken, their tops snapped off and half buried. Between them, the dust moved in thin, constant streams, drifting from pillar to pillar in slow arcs. Tanaka whispered, "A resonator array?" Cade scanned. No heat signatures, no motion besides dust. Sterling stared down the line of pillars. At the far end, something larger rose from the powder. A structure like a bowl turned upside down, half buried, its surface matte and light-absorbing like the other artifacts. A familiar wrongness. Petrov's voice tightened. "This is another node." Sterling nodded. "And this one doesn't hide in a sea. It hides in song." They approached the bowl structure. As they drew near, the harmonics intensified. The dust between the pillars began to vibrate visibly, lifting in thin sheets that fluttered like curtains. The air shimmered with charged particulate. Cade's voice was sharp. "Captain, my suit's reading micro-arcs increasing. This is getting dangerous." Tanaka didn't slow. "It's focusing. We're in the throat of it." Sterling raised a hand. "Stop!" They stopped at the edge of the structure. The bowl's surface was smooth, seamless, but faint lines ran across it like shallow grooves. Channels for dust, for vibration. The grooves converged at a point near the top, where a small depression lay like an eye. The depression pulsed faintly with light, soft, rhythmic, matching the harmonics. Tanaka's analyzer beeped wildly. "It's converting vibration into AM. It's a transducer." Cade's gaze was hard. "So this is the beacon. A speaker and a microphone." Sterling's voice was low. "And we're standing in front of it." He lifted his palm open as he had before. "We received your signal," he said. "We're here to learn." The bowl pulsed. The dust around their boots rose, swirling upward in a thin column, then spread out in a circle around them. Not aggressive. Not yet. A new pattern entered the harmonics. Higher, sharper, like a question posed in a different language. Petrov's voice went urgent. "Captain, entrainment is beginning. All of you. Your heart rates are synchronizing again." Cade snapped. Back. Sterling held his ground for a second longer, eyes on the pulsing depression. "We're not interfacing," he said, as much to himself as to the structure. Tanaka's voice was strained with fascination. "It's not a direct interface. It's resonance. It's asking our bodies to be part of the circuit." Sterling's stomach tightened. "We record only." Tanaka set up a recorder, hands shaking slightly. "I can capture the harmonic structure and translate it into field modulation. It might be later," Cade cut in. Not while it's doing that. The dust column tightened, spinning faster. The grooves on the bowl's surface began to glow faintly, as if charged particles were tracing them. Petrov's voice sharpened. Your cortical rhythms are shifting. You're beginning to... She stopped, because she didn't want to say the next word. Want. Sterling felt it too, a subtle pull in his mind, like the urge to lean closer to a fire and learn its heat. He took one step back. The harmonics shifted. The dust column wavered. Then, like a musician changing key, the entire field changed. The air pressure altered slightly. The charged dust around them lifted higher, forming a low wall. Cade's eyes widened. It's corralling us. Tanaka stared. No, it's stabilizing. It's trying to keep the resonance clean, Petrov said, or it's preventing retreat. Sterling didn't argue. He simply raised his voice, firm. We are leaving. The harmonic spiked. A sharp, dissonant chord tore through the field, not heard, but felt. Sterling's teeth ached. Tanaka gasped. Cade grabbed Sterling's arm. Move now! They ran. The dust rose behind them like a wave. But it didn't crash. It flowed. It followed in smooth sheets, creating a corridor, a channel between the pillars. A path. Captain, Petrov said, breath tight. It's shaping your retreat. It's guiding you. Then we don't let it, Cade snapped, and she veered sideways, trying to break out of the corridor. The moment she did, the dust wall surged higher, shedding micro-arcs that snapped against her suit. Cade stumbled, pain flashing across her posture. Sterling grabbed her and pulled her back into the corridor. No heroics, he said through clenched teeth. Cade glared at him. I wasn't. Yes, you were, Sterling said, and there was no judgment in it, only urgency. They reached the end of the pillar line and broke into open dust plain. The harmonics softened slightly as if losing focus. Tanaka's voice shook. It's damaged. The array isn't stable. It's trying to tune us because it can't tune itself. Petrov's eyes narrowed. So we're being used as calibration. Cade's jaw was hard. Or as components. Sterling looked back. The bowl structure pulsed again, and the dust between the pillars lifted in a new configuration. A spiral, then a lattice, then, briefly, a shape that made Tanaka's breath catch. A curve, nested in a curve, a familiar algorithmic taste. It's showing the same family of patterns. Tanaka whispered, This is connected to the coating and the shields. It's all the same. The sky flashed. Not lightning from clouds, but a sudden discharge from the dust itself. A line of blue-white energy snapped from pillar to pillar, arcing like a string plucked too hard. The harmonics collapsed into noise for a split second. Then they returned. Lower, more frantic. Calder's voice cut in from the Argo, tight with alarm. Captain, I'm reading a surge in the planet's particulate field. It's escalating. Something's destabilizing. Sterling keyed his comm. We're returning. Prepare for an emergency ascent. The dust is... Another arc snapped across the pillar array. A third followed, closer to the landing zone. Cade swore. We're not going to make it at this pace. Sterling looked at the flat horizon where the shuttle sat as a small dark shape. The distance felt suddenly too long. Tanaka's mind raced. Captain, if the array is unstable, it might be overdriving the dust charge. A dust storm is coming. Petrov's voice went cold. An electrical storm made of ground. Sterling's eyes lifted to the red dwarf. The dim star offered no mercy. Run, he said. They ran. Behind them, the dust began to rise in sheets, lifting from the surface in a rolling front. It wasn't wind-driven. It was resonance-driven. charged particles vibrating into suspension, then pulled into motion by field gradients. A storm without weather. A storm with intent, or at least with consequence. Cade's suit alarms began to chirp as micro arcs snapped along her outer layer. She gritted her teeth and pushed harder. Petrov monitored their vitals. Heart rates high, neural entrainment rising. The harmonics weren't just outside them, they were inside them, shaking their autonomic systems like a hand on a drum. "Captain," Petrov said, voice strained, "you need to break contact with the resonance. Change your gait, change your breathing, anything to disrupt synchronization." Sterling forced himself to stagger his steps, to breathe off rhythm. It felt like trying to walk against gravity. Tanaka tried too, stumbling slightly, then catching herself. "It doesn't like disorder," she gasped. Cade barked. "Good." They reached the shuttle. Sterling threw the hatch open. They piled inside, sealing it against the charged dust that now swirled like smoke around the landing struts. Tanaka slammed into her seat and immediately began running emergency checks. "Dust charges climbing," she said. "It's clinging to the hull." Cade snapped. "Can it arc into the engines?" Tanaka's eyes flicked to the readout. "If we stay, yes." Sterling didn't hesitate. Liftoff! The shuttle rose. The storm rose with it. Outside, the dust became a wall of shimmering particulate, lit from within by constant micro-discharge. Blue-white snaps flickered in every direction, like a swarm of tiny lightning insects. And through it all, the harmonics continued, warped now, strained, as if the entire dust continent had become an instrument being played too hard. Calder's voice came urgent. "Captain, the storm is reaching the upper atmosphere. It's creating a conductive column. If it connects with the Argo's field—" "Extend shields!" Sterling snapped. Calder didn't wait. The Argo's shield envelope pushed outward, subtle and elegant. The dust storm hit it like a wave hitting glass. For an instant, the Argo's shield shimmered hard, and Calder's console screamed. Energy tried to couple into the field, to use it as a pathway. The new modulation, the gift from Episode 1, shifted, redirecting, smoothing, refusing to let the storm bite. But the harmonics inside the storm changed again, and Tanaka's eyes widened. "It's tuning to the shield," she whispered. "It's learning our modulation." Cade's voice was sharp. "Not learning. Matching." Petrov's voice went quiet, frightened in a clinical way. "If it phase locks." Sterling's hands tightened on the shuttle controls. "Calder, can you break the coupling?" Calder's voice was strained. "If I collapse the shield, the storm might arc directly to the hull." Sterling's mind raced. The new hull alignment, the coding algorithm, had proven it could redirect impacts and shed charge. It was on the shuttle edges. It wasn't on the Argo. Not yet. Tanaka stared at the readouts. "Captain, if we can imprint the alignment preference on the Argo's leading surfaces right now, just a thin band, we might prevent coupling. The shield can redirect, but the storm is trying to use the shield as a resonant surface. If the hull is less grippy to the field, the resonance may fail." Cade snapped. "You want to repaint the ship mid-storm?" Tanaka's voice was fierce. "I want to keep it from being used as an instrument," Petrov said. "And if the imprinting requires emission?" Tanaka swallowed. "It does, but minimal. And it's the only lever we have." Sterling didn't hesitate long. The storm climbed. The Argo's shield strain climbed with it. "Do it," Sterling said. Tanaka's hands flew. On the Argo, automated emitters, normally used for hull maintenance and field calibration, came online under Tanaka's remote control. They fired in short, tight bursts, imprinting a surface preference along critical leading edges and around key antenna mounts. The ship shuddered. Not physically, but in the way a thing shudders when the rules around it change. Calder's voice rose. "Captain, shield coupling is dropping. Yes, it's slipping. The storm can't get purchase." Outside, the dust storm struck the shield again, tried to ride it, failed, and instead was redirected, sliding around the Argo's envelope like water around an oiled stone. The column of conductivity broke. The storm's upper reach collapsed back toward the planet, dissipating into glittering particulate that fell like dark snow. The harmonics faltered. Then, abruptly, they stopped. Silence fell so suddenly that Sterling felt it like pressure release. The shuttle crossed into the Argo's bay under the shield veil. The bay doors sealed. The ship's interior light seemed too bright after the storm's flicker. Sterling sat back in his seat and exhaled. He realized his jaw ached from clenching. Cade looked at Tanaka. "You just imprinted alien math on my ship." Tanaka's eyes were wide, exhausted, and bright with the horrible thrill of having been right. "I imprinted a survival mechanism on our ship." Cade didn't soften. "Same sentence." Petrov's voice was quiet. "We didn't just learn from them," she said. "We taught them something too." Sterling looked up at the bay ceiling as if he could see the dust continent through it. "Yes," he said softly. "We did." In the aftermath, Calder compiled the storm data. The harmonics, before they collapsed, had left a signature in the Argo's sensors, a complex braid of frequencies that had tried to phase lock with the ship's shields. Tanaka, in the lab, rendered the harmonic braid as a three-dimensional shape. It looked like a twisted ribbon forming loops within loops. "It's an address," she said. Cade stared. "You're guessing." Tanaka shook her head. "No, it behaves like the beacon timing. It's not just a signal. It's a call and response key. The array was trying to match us when it almost did." The harmonic sharpened, like it was about to complete a handshake. Petrov's gaze was hard. "And if it completed?" Tanaka didn't answer immediately. Then, reluctantly, "It might have been able to use our shield as a transmitter. It might have amplified itself through us." Cade's voice was flat. "To call something else." Calder on Holo nodded grimly. "There was more. When the harmonics peaked, right before the collapse, our long-range sensors caught a faint echo, a response far outside the system, too faint to localize precisely." Sterling's eyes lifted. "A reply?" Calder hesitated. "An acknowledgement, maybe, or an automated reflection. But it wasn't natural." Petrov's stomach tightened. "So the network isn't just ruins. It's communicating," Cade said. "Or it's summoning." Sterling looked at the data shape, the twisted ribbon. "Can we use it?" Tanaka's hands hovered over the display like she wanted to touch it. "Yes, but not the way it tried to use us." Sterling waited. Tanaka took a breath, controlled. "We can build a dampening field, a resonance canceller. If environments like this are using harmonics to entrain biology and couple to our shields, we can counter-hum. We can generate phase-inverted harmonics to break synchronization." Petrov's eyes sharpened. "A neurological firewall." Tanaka nodded. "A field-level one. It would protect crew and systems from pattern-based influence, at least in this frequency family." Cade's expression remained severe, but something like approval flickered. "So, Episode 3's gift is anti-gift." Tanaka's mouth twitched. "If you like." Sterling looked at each of them. "We take it," he said. "We build it. We test it. And we add it to our rules. We never enter a node without it active." Petrov nodded slowly. "Agreed," Cade said. "And we keep exposure limits anyway." Calder's holo face looked tired. "Captain," he said, "there's a navigation implication too. The harmonics, when mapped against the lattice points, suggest the nodes aren't random. They're spaced like stepping stones, like a route." Sterling's eyes narrowed. "A route to where?" Calder swallowed. "I don't know, but the farther nodes are stronger than they should be at that distance. Like the network is focusing toward a center." Petrov murmured, "A heart." Cade said, "A trap." Tanaka whispered, "A source." Sterling held the silence for a moment, feeling the weight of the Argo's new surface preference, the way their ship now held alien patterns in its skin. Then he spoke, voice steady. We don't chase it blindly, Sterling said. We don't follow because we're invited. We follow because we choose to understand. Cade's gaze pinned him. And if understanding means becoming part of it, Sterling didn't look away. Then we decide what part. Outside, the dust planet turned in the dim light of its red dwarf, its continent of charged powder settling back into stillness. The pillar array, damaged, overdriven, stood in its line like broken teeth. It had tried to sing through them. It had almost succeeded. And somewhere beyond the system, too far for the Argo to see clearly, something in the lattice had heard the attempt and answered, faint, patient, waiting. The Argo's engines warmed, the resonance canceller project began, and the quest continued, not just to gather power, but to learn what kind of power was gathering them. Thank you for listening. If you like this story, please subscribe for more.